Hello, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation. It is lovely to be able to gather here in virtual reality as we respect the pandemic protocols together. I'm the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt, Consulting Minister for this congregation. This is the first time that we have ever used Zoom as our format to bring our service to you. We have made the change to accommodate the absence of Jimmy Stevens, who is experiencing some unexpected health issues, non-COVID related. While there are many fine options available to Zoom users, I confess to being brand new at this. I hosted a single practice session yesterday in preparation for this service, so I'm asking all of you to bear with me and for a little patience as I learn the particularities of yet another medium for our service. I had hoped to be able to either video this in our sanctuary or to be able to take a picture of the sanctuary and use it as the background for the video so that you would feel a little bit more at home and in the familiar surroundings that we're used to worshiping in. However, technologically speaking, that turned out to be beyond my capacity at the moment. I will work on it. However, in the meantime, just to orient you, we are in my home office, which is where I customarily prepare the sermon and put the service together. So there is a sense in which it is very sacred space for me. And what you see behind me is my desk. There are an assortment of chalices, and we will be lighting the candles that you can see on the upper right portion of your screen during our time together. I'm sorry if it's distracting. However, I invite you into this space, and together I expect that we can make it be a sacred and meaningful occasion. Our Mother's Day program this year is titled More Cards and Flowers, No, Not Even Chocolate. It is based on Principle 2, Justice, Equity, and Compassion in Human Relations, and Source 2, Words and Deeds of Prophetic Women and Men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. You are not likely to see that on many Mother's Day cards, but since Mother's Day began as a rallying call to peace, I hope you will grasp how it all fits together by the time that we are finished here today. If you have never visited Westside before, we welcome you. We invite you to contact us either through the comment section on the service page of our website or by emailing the church office. The address for our website is uuwestside.org. We look forward to meeting you in person when we are able to gather on-site in the future. Here are the announcements for today. I expect that many of you have seen the announcement regarding Reverend Steve Finney's passing this past Saturday. We will be including a memorial moment for him during our Joys and Concerns in this service. If you would like Cynthia's mailing address, please email me and I will send it to you. If you would like to light a memorial candle for Reverend Steve while you are at home, you may want to get a candle now. Our programming team will be meeting via Zoom to plan ahead for future services. If you would like to participate in this and have not already received an email from me about the meeting, please email me at ministeruuwc@gmail.com, and I will respond with an invitation and the codes to the meeting. As always, Rio the dog continues to appreciate the newspapers you drop off for her almost as much as her owner does. They send their thanks. The bin for the papers is on the patio outside the social hall door. Please be sure to secure the lid after making your donation. I also want to let you know that last Saturday was National Labyrinth Day, and it's really good to know that several of us were able to enjoy using the 2 labyrinths that we have on our grounds. That continues to be a COVID-safe activity, so please know that you can use them for prayer or meditation at any time. Do remember to use them one at a time for safety's sake. I invite you now to draw your personal chalice or candle closer to you and to join in the words to our chalice lighting that you received in an email. If you do not have a candle at hand, please simply picture the chalice being lit in your imagination. And as always, please be safe with flame. I'm going to read this first and then light the candle behind me. We light our chalice, honoring the complex realities of motherhood. By its light, may we see the patterns of time and place, of human relationship, of biology, and of need that shape the role of mother. In its warmth, may we forgive hurts and embrace love. Shalom and blessed be. I invite you now to join me in affirming our aspirations, again, which you hopefully have received in an email. And if you simply remember them, just join in. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Blessed be. Today, our joys and concerns will include a memorial moment for Reverend Steve Finney. Reverend Steve was a former minister here at Westside. He is remembered by many in the congregation for the encouragement that he gave them to grow in new ways. As is our custom, I will read a poem and light a special candle to honor his memory. I will follow this with our ongoing congregational concerns and meditation before inviting you to join me in lighting your joys and concerns candles at home. If you would like to light a candle for Reverend Steve at home also, pull that and your joys and concerns candle closer now. The following poem was posted by Reverend Steve's wife, Cynthia, on the occasion of his death. He was 80 years old at the time. It is titled A Walk and was written by Rainer Maria Rilke. It goes like this. My eyes already touch the sunny hill, going far beyond the road I have begun. So we are grasped by what we cannot grasp. It has an inner light even from a distance and changes us, even if we do not reach it, into something else, which, hardly sensing it, we already are. A gesture waves us on, answering our own wave. But what we feel is the wind in our faces. Shalom, Reverend Steve. We continue to hold Robert in our thoughts and prayers as he and Nancy connect with each other over the phone. We are grateful for the good care he is receiving in the hospice program, and we extend our hope for joy in every day to both of them. We turn our attention to Bobby, too, glad that she is well cared for during the pandemic. And we hold Jimmy close in our thoughts and prayers as he recuperates at home. It is good to know that he does not have the COVID-19 virus. We hope he is able to resolve his difficulties and be back on his feet soon. We hold common concerns for our world, for people struggling to overcome boredom, to find meaning and purpose in lives that are disrupted by the pandemic, for those who are sick with the virus and fearful of its effect on themselves or their loved ones, for people grieving those who have died during the pandemic, unable to mourn as we are accustomed to, we extend our heartfelt sympathy. For those whose lives are at risk as they go about their essential jobs, we hold concern. For those who are frightened as they struggle financially to survive, we hold concern. We hold concern for those who lead others at local, state, and national levels. We hold deep concern. May their vision be clear, their hearts be tender, and their determination to serve the public good be their guiding principle. For those who find new meaning in their lives, we rejoice. For those who are building new skills, no matter how reluctantly, we hold joy. For new insights into our social institutions, for new brands of humor to help us cope with pandemic protocols, for the kindness of strangers and the wonder of renewed relationships in our stay-at-home world, we rejoice. For the health and safety of this congregation and those we know and love, we rejoice. To all of these joys, to all of these concerns, we add those we hold in the privacy of our own hearts and minds. Please light your joys and concerns candles at home now. Shalom. And at this point, I want to extend my apologies. I had every intention of having a visit from Riley the rabbit and sharing the story of Runaway Bunny, which is really as much, if not more, about the mother bunny than it is about the actual bunny who runs away. But I found that I can't actually make a puppet and a book and a computer camera and all that that entails work together at the same time. So I will keep working on it, but my apologies for not being able to include that today. I would like to thank you for making it possible for this congregation to continue to be well connected and thriving, surviving and thriving, both our pandemic quarantine in a very good shape. Without regular pledges and financial contributions arriving, we couldn't do that. You may mail your gift to Post Office Box 15146 in Rio Rancho, or you may use the PayPal button on our website. And as always, we thank you for your generosity. Before reading A Mother's Day Proclamation by Julia Ward Howe, a staunch Unitarian that you may also recognize as the author of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, a little background. The, quotes, appeal to womanhood throughout the world, which became known as the Mother's Day Proclamation by Julia Ward Howe, was an appeal for women to unite for peace in the world. Written in 1870, Howe's appeal to womanhood was a pacifist reaction to the carnage of the American Civil War and the Franco-Prussian War. The appeal was tied to Howe's feminist conviction that women had a responsibility to shape their societies at the political level, a really radical thought in her day. In 1872, Howe asked for a celebration of a Mother's Day for Peace on June 2nd of every year, but she was not successful in obtaining this. Our modern Mother's Day was established by a woman named Anna Jarvis 36 years later. While the day that Jarvis established was different in emphasis from what Howe had proposed, Anna Jarvis was reportedly inspired by her own mother's work with Julia Ward Howe. Jarvis was motivated by personal sentiment and the desire to honor the role of mothers at home. She focused on, quotes, the truth, purity, and broad charity of mothers at home, end quote. While successful in inaugurating a national observance of Mother's Day, Anna Jarvis became appalled at the commercialization of the event. Prior to her death in 1948, she even tried to have the holiday rescinded from the public calendar, but unsuccessfully. We still celebrate Mother's Day every year on the second Sunday in May. This year, today, May 11th. May 10th. Most of us will be familiar with the celebration of flowers and candy and cards, a celebration that would have had both of our founding mothers rolling over in their graves. So I invite you to listen closely to the words of Julia Ward Howe's Proclamation, and then explore the powerful and complex dynamics of this holiday with me. Here is what Julia Ward Howe wrote. Arise then, women of this day. Arise all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of fears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of counsel. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, and each bearing after her own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. That is a call to arms. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of fears. A call to arms, literally, a call to flesh and blood arms that hold and protect, that embrace and nurture the people they love. Not of weapons, but real flesh and blood arms. No matter who you are as a woman, says Howe, whether you are Christian through the baptism of water, or simply recognize yourself as a woman living in fear that people she loves will be called to war or slaughtered in war. No matter what defines your heart, she bids you rise. She challenges the customary authorities, calling them irrelevant agencies. She withholds caresses and applause, any kind of affirmation, be it public or private, from men returning home from the murderous task of war. Like Anna Jarvis will focus on 36 years later, she promotes the charity, mercy, and patience that mothers teach their sons from the cradle, the antithesis of war. Her perspective is international. Women of one country will not allow their sons to be trained to kill the sons of other women in another country. As mothers, they unite in saying no. She redefines justice. It is not achieved by violence. She redefines honor and the terms of ownership. They are not established by violence, except that in our world, they are. They were then in her time, and they still are now in ours. Or so we'd like to think, so we have been taught to think. It's not the actual establishment of power she's challenging. She's challenging the means through which humanity has agreed to respect its achievement. She names the violence of war for what it is, murder. She builds a case for women leaving their homes for the cause of peace, just as men have historically left their homes for war. And the first thing the women are called to do together is to mourn the dead, to bewail and commemorate the dead. Because no matter one's personal disapproval of violence and war, the dead must always be mourned, their sacrifice acknowledged, their loss to the world remembered. Even if we are sure their efforts were misguided, we respect and honor those fatal efforts. And then the women will talk until they figure out how the human family can live in peace. Why? Because in the end, each woman bears the image of the divine, not the government. And for Howe, the image of the divine called for the people created in that same image to be people of peace. We modern UUs may have a little bit of difficulty with both Howe's sexist language and her open embrace of the Christian God. She was a woman of her own time. We need to be careful and respectful and not judge her by standards of today. Instead, I invite you to explore the case she was making with me, sexist language, God, and all. I know that now we want women to be equal with men such that they can go to war too. I know that our awareness of religious history makes it hard for some of us to meaningfully engage with images of God. I'm sorry it's so difficult, but please work with me here. These are the roots of some powerful Unitarian Universalist principles and practices. So suspend your desire to edit them out. Let's work with them as historical realities, lest we lose the message due to the messenger style. No matter the historical trappings, this is a powerful call to arms. It was even more radical in its original context than it is today. Today, many of us would be more concerned about the sexist imagery that casts all women as mothers and only sends men off to be soldiers. We know that all women are not mothers, nor do they all want to be. We know also that all women shouldn't be mothers. And while equal rights does demand that women be soldiers alongside men, doesn't that just beg the question as to whether or not anyone should be required to go to war? As you might guess by looking at our world today, Julia Ward Howe was not able to single-handedly change the world. Her proposal for Mother's Day never made the national calendar. Anna Jarvis' more personal tribute to mothers did. But what if it had? What if, in keeping with Howe's proclamation, women had left their duties at home to go off and wage peace? What's missing from the text in our hymnal is the actual element of the proposal. It goes like this: "In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace." An International Women's Congress of Peace. Academic sources comment on the response to Howe's proposal and note that, quotes, "Sadly, the people of the nation were unable to envision a world without war," end quote. We still seem to be unable to do that. We are at war in many places in our world. We use the imagery of war to describe our response to a non-intelligent microscopic piece of protein known as the COVID-19 virus. I know that the imagery fits a lot of the circumstances of our current health crisis, from frontline, yet another military analogy, healthcare workers, to mortuaries, to armed protesters fighting for their liberty. But the imagery only works because we're all familiar with the concept of war, and most of humanity buys into it as either the most effective means to a desired end or as a necessary evil to avoid an undesirable end. What if younger generations didn't know about war? What if instead of waging war for a noble cause, we waged peace? What if that's the only reality that they knew? Do you think we would be any less well equipped to respond to the pandemic? Do we really need images of war to cope with that? We might, because it's part of the world that we live in. But wouldn't it be totally amazing if when someone said something about waging war, we literally didn't know what they were talking about? And please, do not for a minute think that I am advocating that we make peace with the pandemic. It needs to be contained. It needs to be rendered harmless. But that takes social policies and scientific research, not the violence of war. And policies and practices already in place for both our essential workers and the general public that would better protect and care for all of us. That's what's called for, not the weaponry and violent destruction of war. Maybe if the sacrifices of war were not ennobled throughout history, and we couldn't or wouldn't have government officials suggesting that perhaps senior citizens could or should sacrifice themselves so that others could then move more freely about the country. What Julia Ward Howe is calling women to do is to refuse to accept war, not its murderous violence, not its death toll, not its noble sacrifices, not its historical glamorization, not its usefulness in any way, shape, or form for any reason. You can easily see how the men of our government did not respond to her request for a day to honor mothers from that perspective. And not just the men. Many, if not most women, while they may decry violence and the need for war, still see it as a need, still use it as a hedge for their fear. So there was no gathering of women that changed the world. Anne Reeves Jarvis, who is Anna Jarvis' mother, and the woman who inspired her to promote a Mother's Day with a different emphasis, started her own revolutionary work by offering classes to teach women how to be good mothers during the Civil War. The values her daughter later enshrined in Mother's Day came from her work. Men were away at war, and women needed to learn how to raise their sons and daughters so that this would never happen again. Well, we all know how that worked out. Women who are mothers still fear having to send their children off to war. Women still protest, they still demonstrate. The women in Black still show up in public places to protest violence and oppression. Sadly, they and other nonviolent protest groups like them are a minority voice, splintered off from the mainstream. They are important, but we are light years away from making them obsolete. So where are we now on Mother's Day 2020? Well, we're actually living in Anna Jarvis' worst nightmare. I mentioned that she tried repeatedly to rescind Mother's Day from the public calendar. President Woodrow Wilson had signed it into law in 1914. She died unsuccessful at that. She was horrified by the commercialism, which was a lot less in 1948 than it is today. And maybe if Mother's Day did not mean so much, didn't really matter so much to us, cards and flowers and chocolate might be okay. Maybe if the commercialism didn't distort the realities of who mothers are and what they do, it would be okay. But there is something that grabs at our gut about Mother's Day. There is power in mothering. Power to create and power to destroy, to love or to withhold and distort love. We are perhaps better at being honest about the pros and cons of both mothering and motherhood these days. For most of us, the person who mothers us remains extraordinarily important our whole lives through, for better or for worse. Being a mother is an awesome undertaking. So is having one. We human beings struggle to work out our relationships with the people we love, or those we think we ought to love, or wish we could love, especially when that relationship is with our mother. Both Julia Ward Howe and Anna Jarvis understood the pivotal role of mothers the whole world over. They both carried the conviction that how lives are lived, how the world develops, and how it ultimately ends are highly influenced by our mothers. The old maxim, "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world," has some truth to it. Even in countries and cultures that are not matriarchies, even in religions without a divine feminine presence, mothers are powerful. Even when history, literally his story, is the order of the day in regard to the distribution of power and how lives are lived, there is also our heritage, H-E-R, heritage, running parallel right alongside it. Julia Ward Howe is also, and perhaps better known, for writing what many of us know of as the Battle Hymn of the Republic. She wrote that in 1861, 6 months into the American Civil War. Howe was an ardent abolitionist. She envisioned a world of peace and equality far ahead of her time. The song links the judgment of the wicked at the end of time through allusions to biblical passages from the prophet Isaiah and the book of Revelation with the American Civil War. For Howe, the wicked were those who enslaved people. Those who made war weren't far behind. There are several versions of the lyrics. Some were published, some she kept privately. Few of us think of the Battle Hymn of the Republic when we think of Mother's Day, but we all should. They are of a piece made of the same cloth, despite the different design. I suggest that you look it up. Google it, search online, find the lyrics to the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and read it as a statement of faith by a woman who proposed a Mother's Day for peace a few years later in 1870. Howe's passion for peace and justice runs throughout Unitarian Universalist teachings. While all UUs are not pacifists, we probably should be. Principles 1 and 2 are totally incompatible with the interpersonal violence necessary for war. In order to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to proclaim justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, we pretty much have to skip war. Just take it off the table. Take it off the international table, take it off of our US government table, take it off the family dining table. Take war, both literally and figuratively, off the conference tables, the meeting tables, and the banqueting tables of the world. Can you imagine the Mother's Day that we would have then? Howe and Jarvis could. But flowers and cards and candy, even chocolate, won't get us there. They're nice. They often express genuine love and caring. But please don't let them be all that your Mother's Day is about. Go back to the roots of this day and then move forward to our principles. Because the truth is that we love our mothers best when we live their values. Shalom. Now, I encourage you, as always, to use the comment section on the service page of our website to share your thoughts and responses to this service today, even though I know you are not going to be viewing it on our website yet. Perhaps eventually. It's a technological goal that I hold, and I'm not sure when I can actually make that happen. But you can add your comments to the comment section, and then they will be open to everyone to see, to think about, and to respond to. You may also email me directly if you prefer. My email is ministeruuwc@gmail.com. And I really am hoping for feedback in regard to today's service, because we may very well need to use this format again. And so I need to know what works and what doesn't work in terms of the technology and the structure of the service. And I would also dearly love to hear your responses to the content as well. So thank you very much for going to that effort. And I invite you now to join me in extinguishing your chalice or candle at home as I speak the words that you may have in front of you from the email that you were sent. If you don't, I invite you to simply listen with an open heart and mind. I'm going to read them and invite you to read them with me, and then I will stand and extinguish the candles behind me before offering the benediction. So if you have the words, read them with me now. May all that we have seen and heard and thought and felt by our chalice light remain with us even as we extinguish the flame before us. Shalom and blessed be. May all of your experiences of mothering, given and received, bless you. May you find yourself inspired to do and to be all that life calls you to. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere you go, whoever you are with, and however you have need. Shalom and amen.